This is a collection of interviews that I have done. I've lived in Michigan for the last 35 years, and I wanted to do a documentary on Detroit so that people outside of Detroit would have a better understanding of what went on. And I've gathered a series of individuals that have participated and have lived in Detroit for many years.
The backstory, and the backstory, I'll try to make it quick, is that the city of Detroit has lost so much property due to they've properties go into like a tax foreclosure, or if they don't get paid, if the taxes on a property doesn't get paid for 3 years, the city takes it over, and the city will auction it off, and if they can't sell it, it goes to the county, and the county will try to auction it starting at a $500 bid. So, and it's on the internet, it's online, so a lot of people from all over the world can bid on properties. Well, a friend of mine bought this warehouse for like $1,000. It's a 80,000 square foot warehouse. And it used to be like a drugstore and other things. It used to be this building when this part of Detroit was very vibrant and had a lot of people that lived there. They had some businesses. It was a section of John R. and 7 Mile. This kind of area, John R. used to be a very vibrant community. It had thousands and thousands of people living, working in business and so forth. But anyways, this warehouse was purchased, and my friend turned it into like this Airbnb for people that were adventurous and wanted to see Detroit from this, like, from a couch surfer's point of view. So there's this whole network. It's also organized on the internet. And so we had these visitors come, and they spent the night, and they were from Germany, and they were doing this little tour. They had rented a car, and they wanted to go see Detroit, Chicago, and some other city, and I can't remember what the other city is. So they were in Chicago. They contacted somebody I know that had this Airbnb going in this warehouse, and they came, and like what the people that live at their warehouses kind of turns into an artist colony. There's a bunch of people that kind of gravitate to this place, and we hear that these 3 German couch surfers are coming, and everybody's like, "Hey, great, they want to see Detroit." Well, we usually when couch surfers come, everybody in the building kind of like wants to lay out a red carpet for them and treat them decently, because Detroit gets such a bad rap in the media that, like, we would try to welcome people, we'll feed them, we house them, don't charge them anything. We housed them and fed them for free. And so they spent the night, and when they arrive at this building, this warehouse that has like about 15 roof leaks. There's standing water. Most of the houses within the immediate area have been burned out or razed. It looks very apocalyptic. So when the couch surfers show up and they walk in, and I'm in the kitchen, I'm probably making a pizza or something, and they come in, and we knew they were coming, and I can't remember if they said, "We're the German couch surfers." I said, "Welcome to the end of the world." That's kind of my word. So we fed them, we played some music, we partied, and then they went to bed. And the next morning they asked me to be their tour guide. They said, "We want to see Detroit. We got this rental car, and we'd like you to take us to your favorite spot in Detroit, and then we'll take you to your favorite restaurant." I said, "It sounds like a deal." So I brought them. I sort of wanted to drive them through Highland Park, because Highland Park is this too long, or is this story okay? Are you with the? Is this story okay? Okay. So I like to take people through Highland Park, because Highland Park at one time was the epicenter of the automobile industry. It's where Henry Ford started his first car factory, and the designing and the engineering came out of Highland Park. It had probably the high school probably graduated more engineers than any other high school in the country, or maybe in the nation. It was at one time, but after 100 years of the automobile industry, everything is vacant. The school's shut down, it's boarded up. The hospital, 7-story hospital, is boarded up. It's broken windows, it's like graffiti, and it's hard to like describe the place because it really is. So I take these 3 German couch surfers, and we go into the one part of the building where there's a tunnel that goes underneath the road. It was the steam generator for the Highland Park Hospital. I take these 3 couch surfers, and one of them decided not to even go in because the building just seemed so sketchy. So he waited by the rental car and hung out there while me and the 2 other German couch surfers, and we go into this building. It's completely dark, and these guys got headlamps, and so they put their headlamps on, and I find the tunnel into this building. It's a building that we had entered before, and so I kind of knew a little bit of the positioning of this place. And we get to the tunnel, we go underneath the tunnel, and we're going through, and all of a sudden you hear this running water, and we look down. The guy, one of the surfers, shines down. There's ice. There's ice, and there's like some water. And the guy's like, "Hey, we got to turn back. You know, I don't want to get my shoes wet." And I said, "Hey, man, I saw there was a hospital gurney, because there was this used to be a hospital. There's all this like remnants of a hospital. There's a hospital bed." So I said, "Hey, you guys get on this gurney, and I'll push you across. And it's the lowest part of this tunnel." And they go, "Okay." So they got on, and it was kind of a crack up. I'm pushing these guys. So we get to the other side, and we end up climbing up. And we just keep walking around and up the stairs and up the stairs. We finally get to the top of this 7-story building, and we look out. We're overlooking what used to be the epicenter of the Ford World Headquarters, the industrial section at Highland Park. And he had a really good vantage point to look over and see probably a circumference of probably a mile or more. We get to the top. It took us maybe about 20 minutes or half an hour to get there from once we entered the building across the street. We get to the top. The guy says to me, "Welcome to Detroit. Welcome to the end of the world. It's really beautiful at the end, isn't it?" And I thought, it kind of is. There is kind of a beauty, because a lot of these places that have been like abandoned for decades or more have a lot of weeds and trees and things that like kind of growing out.
Tommy, where were these guys from?
They were from Germany, and I can't remember. We had so many German couch surfers. I can't remember if they were from. I think they're from East Berlin.
Were they medical people?
Yeah, and the funny thing is that they go, "Well, we work at a hospital." That's how we all know each other. They work at a hospital, and they were thinking about doing a documentary. Or one of the guy's father is involved with television in New York, some national news channel, and they were looking for some material for some kind of project. But then they said, "Okay, well, take us someplace to eat." And I said, "Well, my favorite place is Dearborn. It isn't actually Detroit, but we go to Dearborn and get some Middle Eastern food. There's like 150 Middle Eastern restaurants in Dearborn, all within about a mile of each other, and it's pretty cool. It's really cheap and really good. And if you're ever away from Dearborn for any period of time, you kind of miss getting Middle Eastern. I go out to California, you go to a Middle Eastern restaurant, and you're like, it's not really, it's not Middle Eastern like back home. So we went, and They took me to Dearborn, and they paid for a falafel sandwich or something. So I remember that one of the German couch surfers, a lot of debris. Like, it's hard to imagine because probably most people have never been inside an abandoned building or let alone an abandoned hospital. And there's like windows are broken. A lot of all the plumbing has been stripped. Any valuable copper has been like just torn out of the wall. So you walk through this what used to be like a pristine hospital is now just a complete wreck with the plumbing taken. Anything metal. There's like 3 stages of stripping that takes place on a house or a building. That if it's abandoned for too long, there's 3 stages of stripping. The first stripping is anything that's metal that's on the outside of the house that can be taken quickly or overnight. And then there's where you go in and they pull out appliances, metal, and copper wire, and they'll just pull the wire like out of the wall if they're reclaiming it to sell the copper. And there'll be just like broken drywall, or a lot of those old houses are plaster, so the plaster's broken all the way up to the light fixture. And you can see, and that's a stage. And then there's the stage, that's like the 3rd stage. 2nd stage is like plumbing and appliances. 3rd stage is they come for the copper. And so that hospital has like all 3 stages.